Jeff. How you doing?
I'm good, Scotty. How are you, man?
I'm good. It's good to see you. We don't get to talk a whole lot, but man, we came from kind of the same era, knew a lot of the same people on the field, and so it's good to catch up with you and spend a little time here today.
I love it. I always said, man, whenever we get a chance to talk, times don't change, but we both got a little more gray hair now than we used to when we played. But that's okay.
You're still looking like you could play. I've definitely surpassed anybody looking at me and going, yeah, that guy looks like he might be able to still play. I look like an old timer.
Well, 3 weeks ago, I got a chance to play with the Savannah Bananas,
You
and
did.
I did, yeah. And I got in that bat, and then I got rounded first, had a horrible slide into second. So if you go look at that, I'm done playing too. But my kids thought it was the coolest thing I've ever done.
Okay, why is this jogging a memory with me? I seem to remember that there was a pretty funny if back then it would have been a reel that went viral, but there was a funny slide where you kind of went up over the top and am I remembering this right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I've had some interesting slides, throughout my career. I wasn't always the. I always like to say I was very athletic, but there were times where that looked a little weird at times. But I had a couple barrel rolls. I slid hard in our third base coach one time, knocked him over, Eddie Rodriguez. So I had some good times.
Yeah, good times indeed. For those of you who don't know, Jeff Francoeur is a 12-year Major League veteran. You may know him most notably with the Braves, where he came up with, and then he actually had a second stint with them, but played for 8 different teams. Broke in on the scene in '05, halfway through the season. It was July. And the amazing thing about that is that you almost won Rookie of the Year. And I remember that year when you came up. I was with the Padres, and we heard about this phenom who came up that swung at everything. And about half the time, he was hitting it out of the yard. But what were your memories from first getting called up?
Well, you're right, and I always laugh because Ryan Howard's become a good buddy of mine. We played with the Phillies. He lives now here in Atlanta, but I always say I did win the rookie of the year. He just stole it from me in September because he hit 12 bombs, and there was nothing I could do to stop that train uh, coming down the tracks. But no, it was so much fun because I grew up in Atlanta, and of course, a lot of people don't know, but Brian McCann, who we played together since we were 10 years old, man, we were the first and second pick for the Braves in 2002. So he got called up 3 weeks before me. Then I got called up. We lived in an apartment together, like going to the playoffs, doing that at 21 years old. It just, you dream about it, but when you're going through it, Scott, it was so cool. And of course, like you said, to just be playing in all these great parks, to face these guys that you grew up idolizing, facing Randy Johnson, facing Pedro Martinez, Roger Clemens in the playoffs. I'm like, it's a pinch yourself moment. And then be able to have some success too, right? Because it's like it's one thing to do it, but to be able to put up some numbers, and of course, coming up at 21 playing for Bobby Cox, man, there weren't many better managers that you could ask to do that for.
Yeah. So talk about that a little bit because I had a similar experience. My first team actually wasn't the hometown team, but I got traded in my rookie year to the Astros and walking into that clubhouse and seeing Craig Biggio and Jeff Bagwell. And it's like, I get to wear the same uniform as these guys. And I'm sure it was that way for you with Chipper. What was that like?
Yeah, Chipper, I grew up obviously idolizing him. And then of course to play next to Andrew Jones. I mean, that was I always tell people probably one of the highlights of my career. I'll never forget the first game, July 7th, 2005. I'm nervous as can be. I walk up to Andrew. I'm like, I'm in right field, you're in center. Like, how do we communicate? And Andrew with that little Caribbean Curacao voice looks at me, he's like, bro, he's like, if you see me running, get the what out of the way. And he's like, and if you don't see me running, you catch it. And I'm like, all right, well, that's easy enough, I guess. But to be able to play alongside him, to have Smoltzy really kind of show you the ropes. And we'll get into it later, but as a man of faith, in this game, it ain't the easiest thing in the world. And you get pulled a lot of different directions that aren't great for you. And Smoltzy was huge, taking me under his wing and kind of showing me, don't do this, do this. Don't hang out with that person, hang out with this person. And that always meant the world to me.
Yeah, talk about that rapid rise and some of the pitfall. I mean, because I know it had to be incredible, like the expectations placed on you coming up. You were on the cover of Sports Illustrated. They declared you the natural. You did have that meteoric rise to
Yeah.
fame, and just talk about like some of those expectations and how you felt pressure to meet them.
Man, it was a blessing and a curse because I came up the first 2.5 years in the game. I mean, at the end of the day, I had a few slumps here and there, but the game felt easy. I had that huge year in '05, '06, '07. I drove in over 100 runs each year, won a gold glove in '07. And '08, I just got off to the worst start, man. And, a lot of things changed in my life. We just got married, me and Katie. We were trying to, figure that dynamic out, which is tough in the middle of baseball, because for the first 2.5 years, I come home after the game, it's just me or me and B-Mac, we lived together talking the game. And now to try to transition from that, my wife was a school teacher, trying to ask her how her job was, all that little stuff. And so I got my first really major slump, man. I didn't know what to do. I'd go get a haircut and I would have listened to the barber if he told me how to hit. Like, I was searching, man, and searching. And, I just didn't know how to deal with it, man. And '08 was a rough year. I mean, I struggled on the field. I would say I struggled off the field just because, I took everything home that was going on at the field. And so, my wife didn't want to hear about it all the time, and so it was just a tough year. And so that was the biggest thing for me. Like, I look back, I wish I would have failed more. I really do. Like, I was lucky in high school, man, and football, baseball. We just, not just me, myself, but our teams, we dominated, man. I went my junior and senior year in football, Parkview, we went 15-0, 15-0. In baseball, I think we were 32-2 my junior year, and then like 34-3 my senior year. So like I mean, I legitimately we never lost. And so I just really didn't honestly know how to deal with failure. And and that's looking back something I wish I would have done a better job, or at least put it this way, gone to better people for advice.
So that's too profound of a statement not to park there for a little bit. I want you to talk about that because I know it's something that you're doing now as you work with coaching, and you lead a podcast that actually offers advice to parents and people that are raising kids. But and we talked a little bit about this before I hit record, but why is it so important to learn how to fail?
Because you know what, man, if you don't, right? Like, you're not going to know how to fight back. You're not going to know a work ethic. You're not going to know discipline. If you're a Christian, let's be honest, you're not going to know putting your faith in God and like he's going to help bring me through this. And so all these things, I started a podcast with two other guys called Pure Athlete, and a lot of it is talking about these experiences. And I have four kids now, 10, 8, 5, and 3. I got three playing. My little one, 3-year-old, I mean, he's going to be a monster. So we haven't even got him going yet. But like, I want my kids to know how to fail. Like, I truly do. I want them to know it's okay to fail. I love it. I coach my daughter's 10U travel team, and we played two tournaments, and she did really well in the third tournament, man. She couldn't hit water if she thought of a boat that tournament, man. And I loved it. We got in the car, and I didn't say anything. I just, I said, we had a tough day. And she was like, man, Dad, I suck today. And I'm like, you know what? I'm glad you can say that because you did. Now, does it mean I don't love you? Does it mean I'm not going to? No, your love's not on a hit or a game. But I do love that she knows, hey, it's time to get back to work. We got to work on some things. And I love seeing that because my goal is not for my kids to ever play in the big leagues. If it happens someday, great. But my goal is for my kids through sports to learn so much about life, man, that when they go to college and they're not with mom and dad anymore, that I know they're going to make the right decisions. They're going to be able to work through issues they have and not just come running back home. And that's what I want for my four kids.
Yeah. That's such a tough line to walk there to balance between, letting them fail and yet being there to positively reinforce and encourage and yet not, blow sunshine or tell them
Yep.
lies, just to make them happy. And, that's one of the things that I tell with because I've got two daughters and they're both playing club sports. And my big thing is we're going to tell the truth. Like,
Yep.
I'm here as an observer, outside observer, and I'm looking, watching this game just like everybody else. And if you tell me something that isn't lining up with what I saw, I'm gonna call it out.
Yep. Yeah, and right, and have the ability as parents to have a realistic expectation on your kid.
Mhm.
And we Mark DeRosa is my neighbor, on MLB Central and stuff, and Mark coaches his son's team. And we talk about this all the time because he'll say some of these kids want to come play on our team, And Mark's like, either A, they're too good, like you need to go play on another team and really challenge yourself, or B, you're just going to sit the bench, or you're not going to get any better. You're 12, 13 years old. Like, go find a team that fits for you, that you're going to improve, you're going to make friends, you're going to learn things. And so we kind of just go through with athletes. We're going to obviously have you on this summer, which I can't wait to hear your story. But that's what we want, right? Like the guy behind you, Adam Wainwright, we had him on 3 weeks ago, and hearing like, you know what I love too, Scott? Almost every athlete, male, female, we've had Dabo Sweeney, some of these coaches on, multi-sport athletes. They all kept playing all these sports to just, you know what, learn different things. Matt Ryan was talking about what made him a great quarterback under centers. He was a shortstop in high school. And he was like, those quick muscles of turning two, doing this, help me get under center and do all these things. So again, it's a cool thing for me because it's kind of become a passion of mine now to talk about youth sports, because I think you can learn so much from sports. The best lessons I ever learned in life were from sports, but you needed to learn it the right way.
So I'm going to throw one at you here, kind of catch you off guard. But sometimes these are the best answers.
Yeah.
As you talk about failure on the baseball field, it might be easy to think of like that '08 slump. But what are some things off the baseball field that maybe you had to fail at in order to learn?
Shoot, man. I mean, right? Like just being a father, being a good
Hmm.
husband. Like I'll tell you this, I've said it and it's finally happened, but my golf game right now sucks. And that's something I'm very passionate about. Like Rochi, Wainwright, we play golf all the time, but it's okay. Like I'm coaching my kids, I know, but getting those priorities, right? Like losing that selfishness of, hey, I want to do this today. Well, you know what? It's not going to work with the schedule or the family or what. So I had to learn honestly on that, how to really kind of, take a back seat to myself and what I want to do and put others first, which is most importantly, the 5 people in my house, right? My 4 kids and my wife. And I would think too, just how to, one of the great things that I learned in life, honestly, was how to say no. And looking back in Atlanta, when you talked about off the field, I got asked to do so much, to speak it so much, and I never said no to anything, man. So I just wore myself out. And I do think sometimes, like during the season, instead of being able to maybe lock in through baseball, I was so worried about doing some other things that, I suffered on the field. So I would say one of the big things for me was prioritizing my life. What, especially in this window with my kids being young, like what is number one, what's number two, what's number three, and what do I want my kids to see? And so that's something that I think I've had to learn and continue to learn, continue to grow from, is prioritizing the time that we have. Because like anything, man, we made a nice career playing baseball. We made a nice living. We got paid well, but time is the greatest thing that we have. And it's one of the most precious things you have in life. So for me, it was how to prioritize.
Listen to you talk, I think of, what it takes to be a good leader. And I love the study of leadership and what those qualities are. I love speaking on it too. But man, it takes some real humility, doesn't it, to as a dad or as a spouse or a husband to say, I screwed up in this area. I didn't do this right. I just read a book that I would highly recommend to the audience. It's written by a Navy SEAL, Jocko Willink, and it's called Extreme Ownership. And it talks about the mark of a good leader always accepts responsibility no matter what. Because if you're the leader, if you're leading a house or a team or a company, like if it ain't working, it all goes back to the leader in one way, shape, or form. And we've got to be humble enough to accept responsibility, to ask for forgiveness. But boy, I mean, what that can do to speak to those under us, to show that humility and say, hey, I don't have it all figured out. I think in a lot of ways I'm figuring this out as I go.
Absolutely. It's got, I love the leadership thing too. When I do a lot of speaking things, I talk about so when I got done playing, I played for so many, I played for a guy you played with Boch, when I was in San Francisco for a little time. So I played for him, Bobby Cox, Dayton Moore, who I think is one of the greatest leaders there is in baseball. And all these guys. So I wrote down a lot of things like, what do all these people do? Right? Like, why are they great? Why do people follow them?
Yeah.
You know? And I started looking, and I came up with three big topics, man. The first one was humility, what you just talked about. They have the ability to apologize. They have the ability to recognize when they're wrong and ask, hey, I need help. I need someone to pick me up. I need someone to help get me back on track. Number two, I would say they embrace change. This world is changing every other day. And as an announcer, I had to embrace change. You know, you talked about it. I give the example, I was a swing at a lot of stuff. You faced me. I mean, you knew I was coming out of the box hacking. And so, I remember when people used to ask me, well, your on base percentage isn't good. And I would always ask them, who cares if on base percentage is so important? Why the heck's it not on the scoreboard? Because they just had, remember when we played, it was average, home runs, RBI. Well, now you go to feel what I mean, on base percentage is like printed as big as you possibly can. So it's like we got to embrace change, right? Like the way I announce now, I've bought into some of the analytics, whether I agree or not. A lot of fans like some of that stuff. So embrace change. And then number three was one I just taught. You got to be willing to fail. You got to put it out there, man. You got to take chances. You got to try new things, and you gotta be willing to fail to get better and conquer something on the other side. And so I always said those were three things that I think a lot of great leaders do.
That sounds like a book or at least a TED talk at some point. I mean, you got to share that with more people.
Well, I mean, think about it. Jesus Christ, like the greatest servant we have, the most humble person that's ever walked this planet. Talk about embracing change. I mean, that guy was living and willing to fail. You know how many people he talked to about coming to know him, coming to love him, that probably just shun him aside, but he didn't care. He kept going with what he knew was most important. So, I think those are some great topics for not just sports, but people in the business world, people as parents, coaches, and for kids as they go through, growing into young men and women.
Yeah. Speaking on the topic of faith, let's go there next. Can you tell us how you first met Jesus?
Well, I grew up going to church. My mom and dad, obviously, we went every Sunday, man. There was nothing, but my sophomore year of high school, I accepted Christ at Black Mountain, North Carolina, at an FCA camp. Ben Watson, if you remember, the Hall of Fame tight end with the Patriots, was my huddle leader. And
Wow.
so he was at Georgia at that time, and he was a stud at Georgia at that time. But still, you didn't know what. But I remember he's this big old guy, man. I mean, just as big as could be. But for 3 days, man, he loved sports, but you could tell there was something greater about him, something that just shined. And I was like, I want that, man. And I remember giving my life to Christ there the last night of camp. And then, of course, my wife was our FCA leader in high school. So me and my wife know each other since third grade. And so, she always, actually, funny enough, she would not date me till my senior year because she said I was too cocky, and she don't want. We were great friends, but she wouldn't date me because she said I was too cocky. So I had to learn some humility just to be able to date her. But it's obviously the most important thing in my life. I mean, good Lord, I'm sure you feel the same way looking back at baseball. I'm like, I don't know how people make it through a season with not having a relationship with Christ. Like, I really don't. Like, I mean, I think we know things they do and outlets they do, but I'm like, man, I'd have been really lost if I didn't have somewhere to turn.
Yeah. Does Benjamin know that story about
He
having such
does.
an impact on you?
He does, man. And it's so funny because, coming through, there's so many different people that I know that have come through faith through him, and how outspoken he is about it. And what I love is, like, right, he does not change or conform for anybody. Like, he is who he is, and he's a great teammate. He never forced things on people, but I think at the end of the day, man, what a avenue for Christ and a guy like him.
Yeah. As we talk about faith now in your life and how I'm sure it's still important to you, can you tell us maybe something that Jesus is teaching you now?
You know what? Honestly, the number one thing he's teaching me right now is showing my kids that that's our number one priority in this household. Because as well as I do, your daughters play club volleyball. We're doing these. There's softball, baseball tournaments every Saturday. And what other day? Sunday. And not just Sunday, but Sunday morning. And we have started to either pull our team out of a tournament, or only play in a 1-day tournament on Saturday, or we've missed this Sunday morning games because You can do it every weekend and be gone. And as I started telling my wife, like, what are we showing our kids that's most important? If we're packing up Sunday morning at 7 a.m. and look, I'm not judging, people are going to do it. And we have a few tournaments that we've actually missed, Sunday morning and gone to a tournament. But if you're doing it every weekend,
Yeah.
and so I think for me and Katie, that's our number one thing. Like we're trying to show our kids that like there's nothing. Because I asked my dad, I said, I played travel ball, Scott. I said, how did you deal with it? He said, lucky enough, back when you did it, those travel tournaments on Sundays didn't start till 1 o'clock. They would not go in the morning. Unfortunately, now, like in Atlanta with Lake Point and Perfect Game and East Cobb, I mean, they're playing sun up to sundown, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's just, they're making tons of money. But I think that's the number one thing is trying to figure out how to show our kids where our priorities lie. And you asked me before you came on, my life verse is Joshua 1:9, which says, have I not commanded you be strong and courageous, do not be discouraged or afraid, for I am the Lord your God and will be with you wherever you go. And for me, why that became so important was a lot of people don't know my debut in the big leagues was July 7th, 2005. July 7th of 2004, I was in high A with Myrtle Beach and I got hit with a 96-mile-per-hour fastball in the face. And I had 7.5 hours of surgery. I shattered my eye orbital bone, shattered the side of here. My whole sinus area got just absolutely obliviated. And so for 2 weeks, I didn't know if I was ever going to play again. A lot of people don't know this about me. I had my eyes swollen, uh, scissored shut, like they after I got the surgery done because they didn't want me moving at all with my eye. And so, but that's the verse that my mom read me in the hospital, like every other day, and at least 2 or 3 times a day. And at that time, like anything, I didn't want to hear it, man. I was pissed at God. I'm like, what the heck, man? But I realized forever that I put that on because like every time, and I tell my kids, every time you play, every time you get it taken at bat, anything like it is a gift from God. It's his grace that you get this ability to do this. And so that's the cool story for me with Joshua 1:9 that's kind of become my life verse.
Yeah, very cool. Let's as we go into our last topic, let's talk a little bit about serving. If you could put a definition on serving and serving others, how would you define that?
Jesus Christ, right? Like, I mean, I tell people this all the time, man. The people that I know that run businesses, and I live in a very nice neighborhood. There's plenty of people that made good money, but it's so funny the people that really I've gone and spoke to some of their companies and different things, and to see the people that work for them, how much they love them, and that they would run through a brick wall for them. And I go back and think about how he treats them, the things that he does for them, the way that that they're grinding with them. I think about this all day. If we serve others, it comes back tenfold, does it not? I always say that, like whether it's from a financial standpoint, a standpoint of just making more friends, making a difference in somebody's life. When we go through with a servant attitude, I've never felt burnt from that before. You don't. Like I said, if you don't get financially rewarded, fine. But you realize, dude, I just helped a family, or I helped a guy or a girl in need. And I said, if you do that, dude, it comes back tenfold every single time. And if we would do that more and more, I mean, this world would be a better place.
Yeah, I totally agree. We talk about that often on this podcast that, if you take a lot of the problems in society today, a lot of them really are just because everybody's looking at themselves. There's so much self-help, self-motivation, social media is built around the idea of self. If we were to turn that around and face it outward and get people focusing on others and what I can do for someone else, I think a lot of these issues of depression, suicidal thoughts, a lot of those things would start to revert.
I agree, and and all you do is think about this. I know a lot of guys that are in the big leagues now that are strong believers who I respect, but all of a sudden you'll turn on Instagram and they'll have like a highlight of themselves hitting a home run. And it just blows me away because I'm like, I don't think I could do that. Not like, hey, look at me, I hit a home run. Like, like it's just like you said, social media and all these people now, what's in it for me? And look, I'm as bad as anybody with that. I have to die to myself that every single day. Well, if I go do this, what am I getting out of it? Because it's like, and that's where, to me, you ask the Lord every single day. for forgiveness and for your selfishness, but say, if I do that, I know something good's going to come out of it. And so I agree, right? Like we all do it. We think about it with our kids and anything else. Well, if my kid's putting in this time, what are they getting out of it? And a lot of times we come to the conclusion of selfish things, what are they getting for themselves, where it's like, okay, are they a part of a team? Are they building relationships that are going to last a lifetime? Like that's what they're getting out of it.
Jeff, talk about when you look up Jeff Francoeur online. Two of the things that really stick out to me is, and I love this, if you go to Wikipedia, oftentimes a guy like you, they'll say he's a devout Christian. And I think that's awesome that that's one of the character traits that they put on there. It also says that you've been involved a lot with charities and specifically Dream House and helping kids with medical issues. Can you just talk about why that was a priority for you and how that made you feel whenever you gave back and served in that way?
What's funny, man, is when I got up to the big leagues, so many people around the area that I would meet, and whether they had needs for wheelchairs or needs for places to live, like their parents didn't have $100,000 if their kid got in an accident and needed all this different stuff. I got involved with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, my wife and I, which is the most unbelievable, one of the top children's hospitals in the country. And I think in life, we spend so much time, don't we, Scott, just walking right by people. They're not even looking at them, not realizing what they're going through. And here we are, and I tell my wife this all the time, we have 4 healthy kids, and we're blessed beyond belief, but you walk by every day and see all these people in need, and we don't ever do anything about it. And I've always said, we were able to have financial resources, um, you know, resources, just knowing people that can help in different avenues, man. And I think, right, like you go back and being a Christian, like we're taught to serve, we're taught to help others in need. And so, my wife and I just kind of got involved with these 2 different ones, and it just kind of took a life on its own. And the more you do it, the more you meet these people. And then, the cool thing is people you meet, and then 8, 9, 10 years down the road, when you hear a story of like how they overcame this stuff and then things they're doing to help other people because you did it, you're like, you know what, man, this is why we do these things.
Yeah.
I'll say it. My mom and dad were great role models for that. I had an older brother, older sister, and my mom and dad, like I said, and that's one thing I try to do with my kids. Like we went to church on Sunday, and that was number one in the family. Number two was going to be education. And my mom and dad were both in education for over 35 years. My brother's a teacher, my sister's a teacher. That's why we always joke. And I said I didn't get a college degree, man. But I would have been a teacher and a coach if I didn't play baseball. And so, that's the thing, right? They're always giving, they're always, in that realm. So for me, it was always having a mom and dad that kind of made me keep my priorities in line.
As we close here, I would love for you just to talk about, all the things that we've talked about that people know about you that can read online. What's maybe something that they don't know about you that you hope that you'll be remembered for?
Gosh, man, that's a good one. Well, a funny thing that people don't know about me is I'd be a country music star tomorrow if I could. Fortunately, I have zero voice and I have zero harmony. So,
Just love being up there.
God, I love music, man. Country music. I love doing it. But, I think more than anything, man, like, I think the one thing I want people to know about me is like, I go back and think, cause like, when I first came up, I would be lying if I didn't say I thought I was going to have a Chipper Jones career. Like I really did. Like I had all the talent in the world. I was in a city that loved me. I had all this stuff, and then all of a sudden, I'm on 8 teams in 12 years. Happened to go to spring training a year to make a team in Philadelphia. I'm like, I didn't even sign a guaranteed contract, but now I look back and I'm like, the announcing that I'm doing for TBS and for the Braves, the kind of the path I've taken, like I feel like God put me in such a position that I know what everybody's going through, right? Like I know what it means to be on Sports Illustrated and to be the top dog. I know what it means to have to go to AAA El Paso for 2 months to work my way back to the big leagues.
Yeah.
And so like I think I look back, if people want to know one thing about me, I am so happy my career turned out the way it did because God saw things that I never saw, that he knew I'd need down the road, whether it was, like you said, to announce or to be a good father, to be a good coach, to have things in line, We always talk about the selfish things, right, Scott? Like, there's a reason God never gave me $150 million. I'd have a plane out. I'd have a runway at my house, like the things of this earth that I would have gone after. And, and my pastor that I love at Perimeter Church Atlanta, he used to always pray for me, give me for me specifically, because I was in a small group, give Jeff neither rags nor riches. Just let him kind of have that thing. So I think looking back, if there's one thing I can know, that I love how my career went. The struggles, the ups and downs, it has made me who I am today, and the ability, I think, to reach out and help people.
Yeah. And I'll just put a definition on that, what you described, that's empathy. Having empathy for others, that's a great quality trait. Jeff, I commend you for what you're doing, for what you've done, for the man that you are and the way that you're teaching others. I look forward to going on your podcast at some point, and I really appreciate you being here on Get on the Game.
Well, I thank you, man. I love what you do, the person that you are, the representation you are for baseball. And we're going to look forward to having you this summer. We're going to put you to the grill test, man. We come out swinging, so hopefully it'll be a lot of fun.
Sounds good, man. Talk soon.
Thanks, Scott.
Hey, thanks for watching Sports Spectrum here on YouTube. You can click our next video, or you can check out our website, sportsspectrum.com.